All right, guys, so here's the first excerpt, one of the first writings that you have available to you. It's the excerpt from Tiger Moon, which was written in 1987 by Penelope Lively. It's where a brother and sister are searching for fossils while their mother waits nearby. Okay, you're going to be looking for literary devices to dramatize use to dramatize the complex relationship among the three characters. So we have the mom, Claudia, and Gordon. And one of the things that I need you to think about is the literary devices. So there's the standard five that we always read for: contrasts, comparisons, symbolism, imagery, and word choice diction. So those five things that we typically read for, you can be looking for those things, as well as there's a lot of different facets that you could also consider out of those literary devices that we pulled out. So I'm going to help you figure out the passage. I'm going to kind of hint where you might want to go with those literary devices. But remember, the five that I always ask you to look for is usually a pretty good deal to consider. That's why I had you look for those five constantly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a read. We'll see what we can figure out here. She climbs a little higher onto another sliding, shelving plateau of the cliff and squats, searching furiously the blue-gray fragments of rock around her, hunting for those enticing curls and ribbed whorls, pouncing one with a hiss of triumph, an ammonite, almost whole. The beach now is quite far below. Its shrill cries, its barkings, its calls are clear and loud, but from another world of no account. So you can see this girl, however old she is, she's old enough to want to go look for fossils. She's also old enough to have her mother with her. But she's climbing, and it almost sounds like it's slightly dangerous that she's climbing so high up this cliff. And she finds a little bit of something that she's looking for. And all the time, out of the corner of her eye, she watches Gordon, who's higher yet, tapping at an outcrop. He ceases to tap. She can see him examining something. What has he got? Suspicion and rivalry burn her up. She scrambles through little bushy plants, hauls herself over a ledge. "This is my bit," cries Gordon. "You can't come here. I've bagged it." Okay, so however old they are, they're old enough to have this sibling rivalry. And I don't know if Gordon is older or if Claudia is older. The fact that she's watching out of the corner of the eye, immediately I thought, okay, well, maybe she's just a protective sister. But then when she says, "What has he got?" Suspicion and rivalry burn her up. She's not watching out for her little brother. It's about who's going to get the best fossils here. Okay? So she goes up to where he is and immediately, not like, "Hey, sis, what have I found?" It's, "Hey, this is mine. You can't come here. I've bagged it." Okay, so there's a lot of rivalry. There's a lot of competition here, and there's just a lot of ill feelings about this. "I don't care," yells Claudia. "Anyway, I'm going up higher. It's better much further up." And she hurls herself upwards over skinny plants and dry stony soil that cascades away downwards under her feet, up towards a wonderfully promising, enticing gray expanse she is spotted, where surely Acerus is lurking by the hundred. So this must be like the really good fossil to get. And it doesn't seem like she's paying any attention to any danger. If she's got like little rocks and soil and things going out from underneath her feet, again, I get the impression that this is quite dangerous. Below on the beach, unnoticed, a figure scurries to and fro. Faint bird-like cries of alarm waft up. She must pass Gordon to reach that alluring upper shelf. "Mind," she says, "move your leg." "Don't shove," he grumbles. "Anyway, you can't come here. I said this is my bit. You find your own." "Don't shove yourself. I don't want your stupid bit." Okay, so again, there's this childish banter that's going back and forth. Unnoticed, they're not noticing the figures below that are scurrying back and forth, and cries of alarm waft up. They have climbed too high here, guys, and people on the beach are noticing it. And again, it's all about this competition. His leg is in her way. Excuse me. It thrashes, she thrusts, in a piece of cliff of the solid world, which evidently is not so solid after all, shifts under her clutching hands, crumbles, and she is falling whack backwards on her shoulders, her head, her outflung arm. She is skittling, rolling, thumping downwards, and comes to rest gasping in a thorn bush, hammered by pain, too affronted even to yell. So she's fallen. So they had been climbing on this cliff. It was dangerous. I was kind of right with my assumption here. And so she's fallen. He can feel her getting close, encroaching. She is coming here on his bit, but she will take all the best fossils. He protests. He sticks a foot to impede. Her hot, infuriating limbs are mixed up with his. You're pushing me, she shrieks. I'm not, he snarls. It's you that's shoving. Anyway, this is my place, so go somewhere else. It's not your stupid place, she says. It's anyone's place. Anyway, I don't. And suddenly there are awful tearing noises and thumps, and she is gone, sliding, hurtling down, and in horror and satisfaction he stares. So this girl has fallen, and she's fallen because of this. So it's almost like we have her part of the scene and then his part of the scene. So here she falls, and here he says basically his kind of account of what's happening. And so in horror and satisfaction he stares. So at first he's kind of like, oh my gosh, my sister, but in satisfaction he stares. And so it's this idea of she's not going to get my fossils. So if you could develop anything about the relationship, I don't think that anybody should write the essay that these people love and care for each other quite a bit. Okay. And then so he pushed me. I didn't, honestly, mother, I didn't. She slipped. He pushed me. Even amid the commotion, the clucking mothers and nurses, the improvised slaying, the proffered smelling salts, Edith Hampton can marvel at the furious tenacity of her children. So everybody on the beach is likely reacting. Mothers, nurses, the smelling salts are to bring her to. They put her arm in a sling. And the mother, Edith Hampton, just marvels at the tenacity of her children, that her first response is to say, he pushed me. I didn't. She slipped. So the first response is to argue. Most siblings would at least be like, oh man, are you okay? But they're still fighting is their initial reaction. It says, don't argue, keep still, Claudia. Those are my ammonites. Don't let him get them, mother. I don't want your ammonites. Gordon, be quiet. Her head aches. She tries to quell the children and respond to advice and sympathy. She blames the perilous world, so unreliable, so malevolent, and the intransient of her offspring whose emotions seem the loudest sound on the beach. Okay? So this scene, you need to interpret what's the relationship between the mother and the children, what's the relationship with the children and the mother, and what's the relationship with the children with each other. Okay? You could, break it into 3 paragraphs that way. What you want to make sure you do is you put in those literary devices. Okay? So you could, I easily see comparisons and contrasts. The brother and sister are actually quite a bit alike, but yet they contrast with each other quite a bit. The mother is not like a mother that other kids on the beach. It doesn't seem like. We don't really hear her say, hey, are you okay? Or anything like that. The fact that she marvels about the tenacity of her children, and she tries to kind of blame it on the world. So those are all things that I would think about. There could be a few symbols in here that you might pick out. That I wouldn't base my entire essay on symbols. The imagery, I think there's a lot to do with imagery here. You could compare the relationships to the images within the piece. Perhaps you could pull some things out of there as you're breaking apart these relationships. Specific word choice, the fact that she brings up the word, she tries to quell the children rather than, that's an interesting word choice. I might look that up. I might look at she blames the perilous world, the fact that the world's unreliable, so malevolent, and the intransient of her offspring. I would look up those words and what is the author doing with those words. So I think you could easily make the case, but you want to make sure that you analyze how they use literary devices to dramatize the complex relationship. So this is about creating a drama here. Well, how does the author use those literary devices to present the drama that she presents? And you're going to analyze that. So if you have questions, reach out to me here, guys. That's the first passage. If you're not sure what to write about, give me a shout and I will help. Make sure also that you're accessing those College Board videos. If you go YouTube, English Literature, Remember, you're going to be watching the video. Let me pull them up here. You're going to be watching the, let's see here. Where'd it go? The writing claims, providing concrete evidence, the deconstructing prompts, and writing effective thesis statements. This one is coming on today, developing claims to support a thesis statement, choosing evidence to support claims. Any of these are fair game, guys. Anything that's on this site, they've put out, they're putting out 26 videos, they're updating, giving a new one each day. So if you just Google YouTube, English literature, AP English literature, College Board, put those videos in, you should be good to go. If you have questions, give me a shout, guys. Thanks. Can't wait to see you again. Bye.